Alright guys, welcome to day 5, and I gotta apologize here. Getting a tip from one of you, I realized I was using my YouTube channel email to create the Google Classroom. That's why those initial codes weren't working. So when one of you requests it, I create a new classroom and then send that code right out. So sorry about that, my mix-up. You guys know how technologically proficient I am. And so we've been looking at nationalism in Europe and how it affected places like Germany and Italy and Austria and Mother Russia. And we're going to do kind of the same thing we did with absolutism. We looked at nationalism in Europe. Now we're going to look at nationalism in Asia. And in Asia it's going to be a little different, especially this first one. We're going to talk about nationalism in China and Japan. And they are kind of intertwined as we're going to get into the 1900s. And we're going to talk about the same event from two different perspectives, from a Chinese perspective and from a Japanese perspective. So when we talk about the invasion of Manchuria, okay, that's one incident, not like 8 times like I'm going to announce it. So nationalism in China is pretty complicated. In the upcoming book, one of the professors that looked at it said he didn't even think it should be in there. So anyway, I'm like, kind of a significant thing. So here we go. If you have any questions, shout them out to me. And what we've got going on in China and Japan is they are going to experience nationalism a little later than everybody in Western Europe. And as I said, the nationalistic movements in Japan and China are interrelated, which may get confusing, so just ask if you get confused. So, nationalism in China is going to begin in around 1912, when we have the last Chinese emperor, a guy named Puyi, is going to leave the throne. I mean, he's still alive, he is just going to leave the throne. And this is going to be a game changer, because going back to its ancient river valley past, the Chinese have only known a system of monarchies. All right, 31 different dynasties going all the way back to the Shang dynasty. It all comes to an end in 1912, just 108 years ago, if you think about that, with the Qing, Qing dynasty. And so at this point, China is going to enter like a new era. Like how are we going to handle this? And they themselves are not quite sure what to do. This is something that no one had ever seen before. And the leading statesman of the time was a Jedi named Yuan Shikai. And, getting ahead of myself. The leading statesman at the time was a guy named Sun Yat. And Sun Yat is named the first president of this new Chinese republic. And he is looking at an enormous battle, how to create something new. Whether it was, George Washington as president, or Simon Bolivar, or, King George of England, who's a real German guy when he takes the throne. How do we actually make this work? When you've had nothing but dynastic emperors for 4,000 years, what do you do? And so, increasing the difficulty will be for nearly the next 4 decades. China is either going to be fighting an internal civil war or defending itself from foreign invasions from Japan, and sometimes doing both at the same time. So this is an incredibly difficult task, and there's going to be invasions that are not only physical but also economic invasions as well. As the once powerful China, the Ming Dynasty and the Cantonese system, is going to be just attacked from all sides. And so this is going to bring us back to 1912. All right, Sun Yat is going to need some help. He's an older guy, and so he looks for someone to help him out. And he turns to military leader Yuan Shikai. Now, Yuan is a general, right? He's a military guy. Military guys like their chains of command, right? General, colonel, major, captain, first lieutenant, second lieutenant. It works for them, whether you're Alexander the Great or Julius or Augustus Caesar. This is kind of how you do it. You want that order. And so Yuan wants to create a strong, centralized government, right? Something that runs along his military lines, which for China is the way things had been done, the strong central government for many years. Problem is Yuan oversteps his bounds. Rather than be this assistant helping Sun Yat's son, all right, this, first president, Yuan wants to use the army to help make himself an emperor. And while this is going on, out in the borderlands, out in the hinterlands of China, you have different warlords who disagree with this. And again, it's proximity to authority. While you're worrying about who's in charge in the capital, I'm going to be out here taking care of myself. And if you look at these different colors over here, you're going to look at the different territories that we're going to have that are going to become foreign. The British in green are going to be here in England and running right here through Nanjing. The French are down in Southeast Asia. The Russians are coming from Mongolia. The Japanese are in bluish purple, and it's this tan area that is going to be Chinese. So you can see how they're going to be carved up. So while I'm saying this, well, the borderland warlords are out reasserting their own local control. The people who are always trapped, as usual, are the poor Chinese citizens, trapped in the middle of the warlords and Yuan Shikai's army when he goes out to deal with them. So, foreign domination from that graphic, the different colored graphic I just showed you, is foreigners have began to dominate Chinese ports. And like we said, when the Cantonese system, China was in charge. Now that is not the case. Little by little by little, China is losing influence over themselves. And in 1915, the growing Asian power of Japan we're going to get to shortly, had industrialized in the Meiji Restoration. And Japan is going to give a list of 21 demands. Little Japan, who was given a lot of its cultural traits early on by borrowing from China, turns the tables. And they're going to give the Chinese 21 demands that would pretty much make the Chinese empire a part of Japan. The Japanese empire will include the state of China. So China will be subservient to Japan. Now this is incredibly insulting to China. Because as I just said, 1,000 years earlier, it was the Japanese who sent their students over. It was, China, the Tang and Song dynasty, who gave them ideas, everything from art and literature and culture and government and technology. And so when Japan does this, all right, saying, hey, we, Japan, helped you become a nation. Now you're going to turn the tables on us. This really makes the Chinese angry. And what's even a bigger insult is after the Treaty of Versailles, that will end World War I, the victorious powers, France, in the armistice, France, England, the United States, will give the German colonies, we go back here, we'll give the German colonies, in red here, that is going to be given to Japan. All right, Japan, this new industrial growing superpower, they got a seat at the Treaty of Versailles when very few others did. So German colonies in China are given to Japan. This really, really ticks off the people of China. And this is going to usher in the May 4th movement, which I think is pretty important, but I guess some other people don't. On May 4th, 1919, Chinese students began to protest the things going on in the city of Beijing by the government of Japan. And the May 4th movement quickly begins to strengthen and spread throughout China. And their slogan was, the Chinese territory may be conquered, but it cannot be given away. The Chinese people may be massacred, but we will never surrender, saying, you can do what you want, but we are ancient River Valley China. We can take it longer than you. We will wait you out, and we will win in the end. China's territory may be conquered, but it cannot be given away. The Chinese people may be massacred, but they will not surrender. And so these students begin to organize boycotts of Japanese goods, economically trying to hurt Japan. And what's funny about this is that the Chinese students hoped that Western science and Western technology and political ideas like democracy could be used to help solve China's new problems, end the foreign domination of the Westerners. Initially, they rejected ideas. They rejected what had always been there to help them. And there's going to be a small problem when the growing forces of communism are going to enter. I do not like my communism, but it could be avoided, but sooner or later these students are going to go to ideas that they think that can help them. So with all of this going on, Sun Yat-sen is going to return. Yuan Shikai is going to be shoved to the side, and Sun Yat-sen says, okay, here we go. All right, I'm going to get this. I'm going to get this fixed, and we're going to get on the right track. And Sun Yat-sen is seen as the father of Chinese nationalism. Like many others, he had studied in the West. He had traveled extensively in Europe and in the United States. And he comes in to help organize the idea of nationalism. And he is going to but use the same ideas of Russia, all right? Russia and China bear this similarity of they're going to build their nationalism on 3 pillars. It wasn't intentional, let me be clear, by Sun Yat-sen. I was trying to make that comparison between Russia and China for the AP Worlders out there. So we have 3 pillars of Chinese nationalism. Number 1 is nationalism. Let's find a way for China to break free from foreign domination. We are a river valley civilization, for God's sake. Let's look to our ancient past, whether it's the Great Wall or Confucius or the invention of gunpowder, the origin of the Silk Road. Be proud of all things Chinese. Secondly, China would need some sort of Republican representative democracy. How do we vote? How do we move to elect our leadership? And number 3, how to use our resources. China has an incredible amount of natural resources. How do we use them? How do we task them to get done what we need to provide security, economic security for the people of China? And so in 1921, Sun is going to create the Nationalist Party, known as the Kuomintang. That's my best enunciation. Sorry, everyone. We're going to use the acronym KMT from this point on. Problem is, after forming the party, Sun Yat-sen still could not make headway. He couldn't make good progress. He needs to know how this Republican system of government works. And so he turns to the Western powers, Great Britain, France, United States. Hey, can you guys help me out? Problem. England and France had just been devastated by the fighting in World War I. They had started out as the largest creditor to the world for the last 500 years. We're going to get to imperialism next. And now they're the largest debtor in the world. Western Europe is broke. They're focused on just survival. And then you have the United States. In the United States, President Woodrow Wilson was hailed going to the Treaty of Versailles as a Caesar coming to shore, and then he's drawn as a court jester, with his rear end being the outline of the United States being booted out. And so since the Europeans made fun of Woodrow Wilson and didn't like his ideas, the United States decides to become isolationist. Screw the rest of you. All right, we tried to help you out. This is how you treat us with this backstabbing, good old boy network behind the doors treaties. Fine, we'll worry about ourselves. We don't need you. And this is a terrible mistake, because when China needs help, no one's listening. They're like, help, help. And when Western Europe couldn't help because they were destroyed, or the United States was angry, Sun Yat-sen is looking for help. And he says, hey, we need help. And up north, we have Mother Russia, who has just experienced, communist revolution. We never had much friend before from Western Europe. So if you need help and you be friend, here we go. Buja vista, we go. So Sun Yat-sen, getting help from nobody else, will turn to the Soviet Union. And unfortunately, Sun will later claim that the Soviets were the only real friends of China, dictating a lot of 20th century history with communism from that point on. So, 1925 is going to be a big year. And here we're going to get one of Sun Yat-sen's lieutenants, a guy by the name of Kai-shek. Kai-shek was a trusted aide to Sun Yat-sen, and he goes to the Soviet Union to study. Now, he's supposed to be gone for a couple of years, but he returns just a few short months later going, hey, I figured it out, it's not really all that difficult. And he returns with an entourage of Soviet advisors. Upon returning, Chiang Kai-shek is going to create a Chinese military academy. And what it is going to do, it is going to help form an army, the backbone of an army for the Chinese Nationalist Party, taking Soviet ideals, and we're going to work this into this military academy. Well, also in 1925, university students begin to protest the treatment that Chinese workers are experiencing in foreign-owned factories, like in the big city of Shanghai, the large port city of Shanghai. The students do not like the way that Chinese workers are being treated either by British or Japanese or French, whatever factories, and they don't like it. Well, the government responds by having the police fire into demonstrators. Now, we know this never works. Didn't work on, the Boston Common. Didn't work at the Bastille. This literally just doesn't work. But they do anyway. And this firing is meant to help to drive the protesters off, but it instead only makes them more angry. Sound familiar, like the Bastille? And it allows the anger of the people to grow. And here's where the nationalist movement is really going to start growing. Also, third factor that makes 1925 so important is that Sun Yat-sen dies. And this is terrible because this is this crucial time for China. The army at this point has about 100,000 soldiers. The Chinese Nationalist Party, the KMT, has about 200,000 members. They are by far and away the largest political force in China. Big problem is their leadership very rarely, if ever, agrees with each other. There's always some sort of problem. And further complicating this was the changes taking place with this new society. As a result of the new government, no longer the emperor's government, industry begins to grow. And so the same problems that plagued, like, Europe, Great Britain, when industry grows, new cities begin to pop up, population shifts. There is a rural to an urban migration, push-pull factors. I can get off the farm and get a better job with more money. More population increases. And as they do that, workers begin to organize, unionize, in effect, their labor, all right? And the middle class, who is now, getting more and more and more prominent, wants to create broader political representation for them. Hey, we want to say in this, in this government as well. And so this is the same thing that Europe went through 150 years earlier. So as a result of this, and as a result of the foreign domination, what happens is when the students are fired upon in Shanghai, a new political party begins to grow. And this is the Chinese Communist Party that will become known as the CCP. And this party was very popular with students in the labor unions. It's kind of the same way, you kind of look at the effect we're having in the country right now, besides all the idiots down in the beaches in Florida. Hey man, this all sounds really good. And so the CCP is created. And if that's your ideal, that's fine. Sorry if you have a brother or sister down in Florida with coronavirus. I can't believe they're still doing that. But young students are always involved in these new processes. It starts with the colleges and the college students and high school students. You have the ability to think, you have the ability to organize, and so now you begin these movements. Same thing that happened over in Russia with land and freedom and people's will. I say you, I'm talking historically as young people. So anyway, before his death, Sun Yat's son decided to work with the communists. Hey, join the Chinese Nationalist Party. We are all in this together. Kind of like Troy and Gabrielle. So, and he felt that together, the nationalists and the communists could cooperate. You'll have the upper middle class and the middle class linked together to fight off not each other, but foreign domination right here. We want to organize ourselves, young people, middle class people, and get rid of foreign domination. Well, the problem is Kai-shek. Kai-shek in 1926 decides that he's going to go into northwestern Europe. He's going to take part of his army, and he's going to get rid of the warlords causing destabilization. He's going to go get them. And these guys were ravaging the countryside. They were destroying, peasant villages and crops. And then all of a sudden, in a bizarre, crazy move, right, Kai-shek plants his foot in the ground and cuts back. And he suddenly decides to attack Chinese communists. He felt he becomes one of these kind of like Stalin, Hitlerish guys that believes the communists are trying to undermine him. And he's like, what? They're like, what? We were working with you. We're trying to get rid of the foreign imperialists and the bad warlords. Why are you attacking us? But Kai-shek, all right, has always enjoyed the support of wealthy business owners and large corporations. So all of a sudden, when they're supposed to be focused on getting rid of these foreign nationalists, Kai-shek loses the power of the army and the financial power of China on the communists. He doesn't like communist ideas interfering with his workforce. And so just like Hitler, just like Stalin, in 1927, Kai-shek orders a Stalin-like purge of the leadership of the Communist Party. We're going to get rid of all of those leaders. Plus, even worse, he goes on a spree where he kills many urban industrial workers, those that were trying to collectivize and to unionize for better working conditions and better working pay. He goes after the industrial workers that support the communists. And this is something that's going to reverberate throughout China for the next 2 decades. And at this point, things come to a head when the Communist People's Party realized they could not entice large numbers of the nationalists to join them. They found that most people were siding with the nationalists, so they are forced to flee and literally run for their lives into the mountains. And this turns Chiang Kai-shek into the new central figure in the new governmental capital of Nanking. Now, some of the things about Chiang, again, he's a military guy. He liked order. He was very strict. He was very disciplined. And he was somebody who liked to be feared. And he would also like to say that I am incorruptible. I cannot be bought off. I cannot be, sold off. I'm going to do what's right for the people of China, which was good as long as you were one of his supporters. So anyway, his power, like all these dictators, is going to rest on the strength of the army and just the sheer dominant numbers and strength of the Nationalist Party running the government. And like all evil dictators breaking out how to be an evil dictator for dummies, Chiang is going to create that secret police force. They're going to sniff out opponents. They're going to ferret out communists under every rock, tree, and shadow, and they are going to eliminate them. And Chiang now is the official president of the Communist People's Party. However, he is, action-reaction, to balance the scale, there is going to be an opposing force. And this guy is Mao Tse, who will eventually be called Chairman Mao. And Chiang is now going to have a rival, all right, a joker to his Batman, or whichever one you think is the Joker, whichever one you think is Batman, that is up to you. It's America. But Mao Tse is one of the guys that escapes Chiang's purge. And he feels the way for China to gain power was through the numbers of the overwhelming peasant support, the millions and millions of peasants that are in China. And going back to, the Gracchi brothers of Rome and Aristotle of ancient Athens, I say this many times, he who wants to win should aim for the middle class. This is what you do. Go where the numbers are. Well, in China, that's with the peasants. And so, for years, Mao Tse-tung is going to be hunted by Chiang Kai-shek's forces. And Mao is going to give that great quote. I hate to give, communists any credit in my, personal opinion, but I do like this quote because it makes sense. He says, "A single spark can start a prairie fire. Once this thing gets rolling, who knows where it is going to go." So while Chiang is hunting Mao, in comes the next X factor, the Japanese invasion. Japanese are after Manchuria, this purplish area right here. They're after industrial raw materials, iron ore, coal. One of the things Japan does not have is many natural resources built for industry. And while they're an industrial society, they need those raw materials. And the second map is going to be known as the Long March. It is a march of over 6,000 miles of Mao leading people trying to stay ahead of Chiang Kai-shek's forces. So, when the Japanese invade the Chinese province of Manchuria in 1931, is because they want to add Manchuria's natural resources to their empire. And one of the things the 21 Points said was that if any Japanese industrial assets are threatened, the Japanese military can invade to keep them safe. So part of a railroad owned by a Japanese mine mysteriously blows up. My opinion is the Japanese blew up their own railroad. Not the whole railroad, but like 60 feet of track. And they say, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. The Chinese did it, so they invade. So now we got Chiang and Mao running around down here. The Japanese are invading in the north. And Chiang's generals turn and say, all right, man, the heck with Mao, let's get all our boys together and let's go and let's, hunt down these Japanese and let's stop them. All right, let's get these Japanese the heck out of our country. Chiang does the opposite. He will waste resources and time and men and energy saying, well, I don't really think we can stand up to Japan. They're a lot tougher than we are, so I'm going to hunt Mao instead. And his generals are like, what? The enemy is Japan. We're supposed to be focusing on the imperialists. But with that purge, all right, of the CCP, these guys are kind of tentative. And so, Chiang, for a small time, will form a truce, a peaceful alliance with the Communist People's Party to try and fight the Japanese. And this lasts for 5, maybe 6 years. And by 1937 here, Chiang once again decides he's going to go after the communists. He and the Nationalist Party controls much of China. And the Western powers, Great Britain, the United States, recognizes his government. He's got it. We have no idea, or I have no idea, what the heck went wrong with him. And so, at this time, Mao Tse-tung, from 1934 to 1935, is going to lead 90,000 Chinese communists, you can see on this 6,000-mile journey across the difficult terrain of the interior of China. Because of the hardships on the march, the young people, the old people, only 20,000 are going to survive. But Mao, on the way, kind of tells his followers, hey, we're trying to recruit these peasants. So kind of, be nice to them. If you need something, offer to pay for it. If you don't have the money, offer to do some work. But don't steal, don't wantonly destroy. We don't want to become the thing they fear the most. These warlords that have been hunting them. We're going to try and, put on a nice view. We're going to act nicey nice. And while we know in Russia, the populace, the Land and Freedom, tried this and miserably failed. In China, it works. And Mao Tse-tung begins to slowly but surely gain support. I know I'm over time here, guys. I know that I'm only supposed to go 30 minutes, but we're in the middle of this. So if you can bear with me, maybe in the next 2-3 minutes, I'll try and ramp this up. So anyway, at the same time, Japan is going to resurge, and he is going to attack again in 1937. At this time, the United States is going to send military aid for Chiang to use against the Japanese. But Chiang begins to stockpile it to use on the communists. And his guys are like, Japan is the enemy. What in the heck is your problem? And here's all sorts of propaganda. Here's Mao and here's Chiang. And here's Mao riding a donkey with the peasants. Here's him being happy and leading the people. They have no idea what is about to befall them. But that is a later chapter. So, it's bizarre. But it is the invasion of the Japanese that gives opportunity to Mao Tse-tung. It allows him to seize power. With Chiang on the run himself from the Japanese, Mao can catch his breath. He doesn't have to worry about being hunted daily. And he begins to have his people educate the peasants, educating them in the mindset of what Mao Tse-tung wants them to have. He begins to promote literacy, calling it the Confucian civil service schools all over again. And he has peasants form village councils, kind of like the Zemstravos over in Russia, will teach you how to self-govern. And by doing these things, whether he meant them or not, kind of ingratiates Mao Tse-tung with the people. And so by 1945, the Chinese Communist Party is now 1.2 million members strong. It is stronger than the Nationalist Party. And Mao Tse-tung is, in effect, the leader of China. And he will constantly, like this propaganda picture down here, present himself as the one true heir and successor of Sun Yat-sen. Now, even though he believed in the Lenin style of communism, Chiang and the KMT, I'm going to say, back up, I got ahead of myself. We haven't seen it yet, but Mao believes in the Leninist style communist ideals going back to the Russian Revolution. And while Chiang Kai-shek and the Nationalist Party wanted to govern China through government-appointed officials and old aristocratic landlords, Mao's idea is different. It is grassroots from the citizens up. He's got an army of 1 million soldiers, and it's his personality, his charm. You know, maybe he was like a Louis XIV type guy or a Charles II guy. The people gather around him. He is their leader, and he understood the people much better than Chiang Kai-shek ever did. So at the end of World War II coming, the United States will force Japan to surrender to Chiang Kai-shek. However, shortly thereafter, a civil war is going to break out. And, in just 2 short years, Mao, I got to speed up here, Mao and the Communist Party are able to rival, take on, and defeat the Nationalist People's Army, the KMT. Mao Tse-tung is actually able to go on the offensive, and in 1949, he achieves control of China. He will take the title of Chairman Mao, the Chairman of China. Now, at this time, just like when ancient Rome was falling, many intellectuals, professors, teachers, big business owners are going to flee China because they know what's coming with communism. They will go to Hong Kong and Taiwan. So overall, the people of China saw Chairman Mao as a liberator. And for the first time in about 100 years, China will now be controlled by Chinese, not foreigners. And their future will be dictated by them, not imperial powers. All right, 37 minutes. Sorry, guys. If we don't head back to school, I will continue this with Japan. But I hope to see you guys soon. Over and out.